Fountain pens are really popular for urban sketching, and I quite often get asked about mine. So I've put together a short video just going over the ones that I use, which ones I like, maybe some that I don't like so much, and which one's my overall favourite. So to start off, the first one I bought was a Lamy Safari. You can get them in all different nib sizes. They will come with some cartridges, but the cartridges won't be water resistant, so if you want to put some watercolour wash on top, you need to buy a converter. And then once you've got the converter in there, in place of the cartridge, you can add whichever ink you want to use. I use platinum carbon. It's water resistant, it doesn't clog up my pens. It's my favourite ink. So I like these pens. I've got about 3 or 4 of them, and I'd highly recommend them. The next one I bought was a Kaweco or Kaweco, I apologise if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, Sport. I like it because I like the size of it. It's very small, as you can see, and I tend to use it posted, as in I put the cap on the end to give it a bit more weight and to make it balance better in the hand. Now the drawback with this pen is, because of its size, again you have to buy a converter. The converter is tiny. If you're going to go out sketching all day, I really wouldn't think you could rely on not running out of ink, personally. So great little pen, pretty nice colours that they come in. I've seen people on Instagram who've got absolutely tons of these. They've just got whole collections of them in different colours, and it's very, very tempting. So I would recommend it, but just be aware that the amount of ink it holds isn't a great deal. Next, I wanted a Fude nib. This is a Sailor Fude de Mannen. And a Fude nib, if you haven't come across them before, is basically a pen with a bent nib. They're used for Japanese calligraphy, and they're good because you can get different widths of lines. You can use the pen upside down to get a very thin line, and then depending on the angle that you hold the pen at, you can get thicker lines. So they're great if you want to sort of black out areas, say windows. Again, you will need to buy a converter if you want to use your own ink. And this one, I have to say, does leak a little bit. I don't know if it's something I've done, whether I've over tightened it or done something strange with it, but it does leak out of this part of the pen sometimes. So you have to be careful of that, especially if you're using water resistant ink, because once it goes on something, you're not going to get that out. Now I've got it all over my hands, as you can see. I've got 2 of these. The other one is a blue one, and it has a different angled nib. This one's a 55-degree nib. The other one's, I think the other one's 40 degrees, so you just can't get quite such a thick line, but there's not much difference, to be honest. Along the way of buying these pens, I've also experimented with some cheaper ones. I've mentioned this one before. It's a Jinhao, and it's modelled on a Mont Blanc, but costs about 10 quid. I actually quite like this pen for the price and the fact that it comes with a converter, so you don't have to spend any extra on that. I think it's great. So I'd happily recommend one of these. None of these pens are particularly expensive. The thing is that you're going out, you're possibly going to be sitting on a park bench in the middle of a busy street. By its very nature, urban sketching, if you drop it, it's not going to be on a nice soft carpet. So personally, I wouldn't spend a lot of money on one of these pens because I'd just be scared to take it out of the house. I mean, to be fair, I haven't dropped a pen yet, but you can guarantee if I bought a really expensive one, I would. Another Jinhao I bought was another Fude nib, and it's got quite a fat body, which I like, but that's personal preference. I know some people prefer a slimmer pen, in which case you'd probably be better off buying the Sailor Fude de Mannen. But this one was cheap, came with a converter. I'd happily buy another one of these. I did buy, this is also, funnily enough, a Jinhao. I don't know what possessed me to buy this. It's pretty ugly. It looks quite cheap and nasty. It's got some sort of hideous, I don't know what you'd even call that. Anyway, I bought it and it doesn't really work very well. It's scratchy, the ink doesn't flow. I can't blame the ink. The ink is the ink that I use in all my pens, and I don't really have any other problems with it. So be aware, if you are buying a cheap Jinhao, some are better than others, and this one might as well go in the bin. Finally, come on to my favourite pen, and that is this one. It's a TWSBI Eco. Now, the reasons that it's my favourite, first of all, it's never let me down. It flows beautifully. The ink just flows smoothly. Secondly, you don't need to buy a converter because the ink goes straight into the pen itself. So no need to buy an extra converter. The next thing is, because it goes into the actual pen itself, it can hold quite a lot of ink, more than, say, the Lamy. So if you're going out for a long sort of sketching session, this one hopefully see you through it. And last but not least reason, you can actually see how much ink there is left in it. The only slight thing about that is I did look at it one day and thought I'd got a full barrel of ink, and actually the ink was sort of, I don't know, sticking around the edges of it, and actually it hadn't got much left in it at all. Luckily I had an emergency pen with me, so disaster averted. But TWSBI Eco, you can get them in different nib sizes as you can the Lamys and most of these pens. So I think this one's a medium that I'm using here. And that is my go-to pen. If I could only take one pen with me, it would be this one. I hope that's been helpful. If you've got any preferences or any other suggestions of pens you use, I'd be really interested to know, because I'm quite up for buying some more to try out. Please do leave a comment. Thanks very much.